Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students of Honors Part 4, how you folks are doing? In our today's class, I will discuss the treatment of nature in Emily Dickinson's poetry, and I will take two classes to discuss the treatment of nature. In our today's session, I will discuss part 1, and you know that Emily Dickinson is one of the greatest American poets. Her treatment of nature is varied, unique, unparalleled, and marvelous. Mentionable that she was a private poet. Many of Miss Dickinson's conventional nature poem praise nature as the gentlest mother who soothes and comforts her bruised children. In these poems, she delights in nature's external pageantry and expresses a sentimental enthusiasm about the red breast of the robin and the butterfly's beautiful colors. But her later poems show the distrust of such analogies and depict an ironic contrast between nature's ordered majesty with man's doomed mortality. In these poems, nature mocks man rather than comforts him. And let us see that in her poem, death is the core of nature. Some of Miss Dickinson's poems emphasize nature's decaying and corruptive power. Death lies at the core of nature, continually threatening man with extinction. Many poems like The Morning After You and I Dreaded That First Robin Show analyze nature's betrayal of those hearts that love her best. In a poem about frosts killing a flower, apparently with no surprise, she even questions if nature has any meaning at all, because a universe that proceeds indifferently and is untouched by such crimes haunts one with terror. And let us now see the innate mystery and strangeness of nature in Emily Dickinson's poetry. The destructive power of nature's winds, rains, and lightning storms also impressed Miss Dickinson, but her chief response to nature was a fascination with its continual change, the daily passage of the sun, the sudden alterations wrought by storms, the miracle of his spring growth, and the deceptive appearance of Indian summer. The unusual and the old aspects of nature attracted her, and she transmutes unpoetic subjects like crickets, flies, weeds, and rats into art. She qualifies her genuine enthusiasm for the beauty of external nature with an awareness of its innate mystery and strangeness. Never certain of any clear correspondence among God, nature, and man, she remained a skeptic or doubtful person who both admired and doubted. Miss Dickinson refuses to employ nature as a guide for moral behavior. She shows too an unusual skill in presenting sensuous impressions. Her poems on birds, flowers, insects, and natural processes rarely become didactic or insist upon divine analogues. And let us see the the image of sunrise, sunset, and storms in her nature poems. The drama of sunset particularly attracted her. One poem, I'll Tell You How the Sun Rose, uses a series of action verbs and domestic images to convey the quick surprise and changing colors of the dawn. A better poem on the same subject opens with an arresting conceit, blazing in gold and quenching in purple, leaping like leopards to the sky. The dramatic occurrences of summer rains and lightning storms impressed her equally. The unleashed power of these storms, with their complete dominion over man's world, gave her a sense of circumference and religious fear, which deepened their picturesque effect. The wind began to knead the grass, employs touches of local color with which, together with a fantastic array of action verbs, exhibit the mysterious chaos of a sudden summer downpour. A later storm poem, There Came a Wind Like a Bugle, enlarges the feeling of reverence and surprise that any life can survive such onslaughts. And let us see the love of flowers in her poetry. Miss Dickinson loved flowers and had a greater knowledge of them than any of other item in nature. Though her poems on the rose, the buttercup, and the daisy are generally conventional and sentimental, only a poem on the arbutus has the freshness and precise detail that distinguish her best work. Pink, a small and punctual aromatic glow, covert in April, candid in May. These clipped, humorous adjectives focus our attention on the furtive beauty of this early spring arrival. And let us see the image of bees, birds, and insects in her poetry. Some of Miss Dickinson's best nature poems pertain to bees, birds, and insects. She was particularly fond of bees and delighted in caricaturing their incessant activity. A light poem, A Bee, His Burnished Carriage, describes the honey gathering process as the frank seduction of a quivering rose. Two of her description of birds dazzle the reader with their exuberant images and extravagant conceits. These descriptions pertain to the oriole in the poem, one of the ones that Midas touched, and the blue jay in the poem. No brigadier throughout the year. However, her most famous nature portrait is that of the hummingbird in the poem, A Root of Evanescence, which, besides registering a vivid poetic response to nature, also conveys Miss Dickinson's sense of mystery and elusiveness of nature. My dear students, in our next class, I will I will discuss segment 2 of Emily Dickinson's treatment of nature, and until then, wish you all the very best. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.